The last theme is creating change makers for sustainable cities. And Thomas Berman, whom we met in the debate, is going to tell us about a blueprint for democratic change making, nothing less.
Nothing less, thank you. Yes. I'm not going to actually do what I said. It's not, well, maybe it's a blueprint. And it's quite relevant for the discussion we've had now. In these kind of conferences, I'm a practitioner, so I'm always at awe with all the knowledge that is out there. But I get so frustrated. Like for Petter's presentation and the work you've been doing, we have solutions that are so much better than what we're doing now, and still we're not changing anything. And as a practitioner who's very much engaged in system change, I just don't understand why. And that's basically what I've been working on the last 12 years. Is trying to understand why, not by doing research, but actually trying to do something. And I always have this picture in the background. It didn't usually say +3. It said +1.5. And then I said +2, and then 2.5, and now I'm actually at +3. And that makes it even more frustrating that we're struggling to keep that, to increase the pace of change. So, just briefly on where I'm coming from, or where I'm talking from. I'm CEO of a company called SoCentral. We're a non-profit company established 12 years ago, basically trying to figure out what sort of organization do we need when a lot of people around the table says someone should do something about this, like what Peter presented. So, someone should create this change. So we started doing that, and then we've done a lot of collaborative projects. So just also on the last speaker, this how do we guide all these dilemmas, different stakeholders. So we just basically been trying to build projects doing that. We also run a kind of co-working space for changemakers in Oslo at Central. It's around 250 members at the time, and they're from all parts of society. So they work on ocean, on inclusion, they're researchers, they're practitioners, people from municipality, startups, basically just people who want to trying to do stuff. And most of our work sort of is anchored in the theories behind the wicked problems, which many of you know. And just to give an example of the kind of project we do, is we work from everything from inclusion of children in activities. So BUA, someone might have heard of that solution. It's been created by SoCentral. We were part of the startup of that. Now we're also running citizen assemblies because we see democracy as a core component in solving all of these issues. We're also on very much on community-based projects, and then also on city development. And just as I learned about this quite recently, and basically what we are trying to do is create these kind of niche projects that are ready when the system is available to change, because that's not up to us. We can obviously talk about it, we can discuss it, but it's so many other factors that comes into the picture when actually new ideas change the system. Today I'm going to use the time to talk about the 17.17 infrastructure. So one of these initiatives we've been part of. And when I say that we build them, it's not us who builds them, we build them together with a lot of other people. And in Norway, this is now called Pådriv. So it's been mentioned a few times today, actually. And it is a new structure for people who want to create change. It's not a typical organization. So many people talk about it as an organization because that's the terminology we have. But it is actually more of an infrastructure that is also it's held in an organization, but it's more an open infrastructure for people who want to create change. It was developed on the back end of a conference like this in Trondheim. So there we have again Trondheim, where it's like in konferansen in 2015. And basically, a lot of people just being frustrated. Why don't we do anything about this? So we got some money from the Norwegian Research Council. A lot of people gathered. And then we found an idea about how could we structure this. We did a pilot in Oslo. And very much what this is about is not about setting new goals. It's basically about how do we prioritize and how do we get things moving? How do we create these early stage ideas from idea to a practical example at a scale that might be able to change the system? Now this infrastructure is being used in Oslo, Pådriv Oslo. It's been used in Trondheim, quite early stage in Trondheim, also in Stavanger. And Ålesund has adopted this structure into Framtidslaben, which they're running. It's still very much in development, but in Oslo specifically, is now seeing quite a lot of interesting results. The reason why we built this infrastructure is because obviously the challenges are so complex, we know this, and we see that extreme collaboration is needed. It's not, from my point of view, it was when I started doing this work, I went to a conference like this and I met the same people over and over and over again. And everyone was talking about we need to collaborate with people from different sectors. And it was the same sector meeting every time. So that's sort of a knowledge that we know. We need to have the trust and meet people who have different views, work on different aspects of society. And when it comes to change makers, and then also some of the last speakers said that individuals can do a lot. Especially if they have access to networks, if they have access to knowledge, and that is not equally distributed. Some of us have a huge network through maybe our university or our role, and some have not. So this infrastructure is also much about creating equal opportunities for more people who want to create change so they can access that network and access those resources that the network has. We also are very good at creating these kind of infrastructure or networks when it comes to projects. And I guess, research projects are very good at this, connecting people across countries. You get these great networks that work for some time, and then the project stops and it dies down. The idea here is very much to build that network in a physical space, so in a city. So independent of project, the network is still there. So you can put new projects on the same network over and over again. So I'll tell you one story of results coming out of Pådriv Oslo. And it's actually been told earlier today, so we can save some time, which I think is good. Because it is about the story of a construction tent. And it's a story about Martin. So Martin is a change maker. He works at Resirkel, a small startup. And Emil, for those who were here earlier today, talked about the Circular Resource Center, which is started with Martin. The problem has been already defined today. So Resirkel, Martin, they meet Statsbygg, two very different stakeholders. Martin has an idea. They have been part of research projects saying that we need this kind of storage facility. Statsbygg has this tent, building tent, and they meet. But they can't sort of interact into the current structure because they're not allowed to give that tent to Resirkel. And also, Resirkel is a very small company. We don't have the financial means to build this project because it's probably not going to be profitable because the market is not there. So they approach this infrastructure, Pådriv Oslo, so there's people working in this infrastructure, and having a network also with the municipality of Oslo, it was actually me, made the call to 3 different departments in Oslo. They met next week, and they said, this is the kind of project we need in Oslo. So we felt, okay, now we move forward. And a few, actually weeks later, we decided to move forward. It became SoCentral. A lot of other partners during the next 6 months got on board, co-funding this project, putting a lot of money into it, because everyone said, this is something we need. We knew about a property or an area in Oslo where it could be placed, and then it opened actually 14 months after the first phone call, which was quite fast. And Emil has told us all about the other things that this has created. Martin, on the first picture, he didn't know it, but he's actually created a whole new network. One person. And when it comes to policy, just on my initial slide with this being a niche project, and then the city says this is something we need, and now in the last byrådserklæring, byrådet said we need to establish this on a permanent basis. So now it's becoming a policy thing as well, because it was real. So Pådriv Oslo also is used for a lot of other stuff, so that's what makes it interesting. Urban farming, discussed earlier today. But also, this project is quite interesting. All the different religions have gone together and said, should we have a common house where we have dialogue and collaboration? And then, as a project I want to sort of emphasize today as well is the Oslo Fjord. NMBU is quite involved in this already. And I think the work that's just been presented today, Petter, is sort of key in this, is how do we not only think about the fjord itself, but also the infrastructure behind it that leads to the fjord not being healthy. We are now gathering stakeholders to see if we can create a project building the Oslo as a mission, a new sort of mission in Norway, and we really hope that this group is going to come up with some brilliant ideas on how that can be done on a practical level. Pådriv, I'm not going to go into the details of this, but everyone can be involved. So also to your question, how do students, we have a lot of students who want to participate. They can just go into Pådriv Oslo and say, I want to be a pådriver. And then you're included in all the information. You can get access to projects. You can be a resource. You can also come with your ideas. There's a structure behind this which is quite detailedly or designed in a very specific way. It has been tweaked, changed during the years, but now it's found its form because it is extremely important that all stakeholders can trust this structure. So it's not for profit, you can't sell services, or this structure can't sell services, it's owned by all organizations who want to be part of it. These are the organizations that own it in Oslo, and NMBU being one of them. So I'll end there. And for me, change making is obviously key. I think we need a lot of change makers. My experience is that you find them everywhere in society. It's not sort of the innovators, it's not the innovation hubs that has the change makers. You find them at the universities, municipality, local level, government level, people working in schools, in hospitals, everywhere. So what we need is encourage them to step up and give them access to all of you so they can be part of this change. Thank you.